I'm Lavanya J, and this is Hiring Mastery Show, world's first exclusive hiring podcast that increases your hiring quotient. This is the place to be for millennial entrepreneurs and hiring managers to learn about hiring the right people, building great teams, and creating profitable, high-performing organizations. To know more, check out hiringmasteryshow.com. This is episode number 4, and in this episode, we are talking about how your willpower impacts hiring decisions. Let's get started. You might think hiring the wrong person for your business is a mistake. You might think hiring the wrong guy is a bad hiring decision from your part as a business owner. But not only that, even missing out hiring the right person also falls into bad hiring decision. People make bad decisions all through the day without them consciously knowing it. Your decision-making power is directly proportional to your willpower. The more willpower you have, the better or right decisions you make. The lesser willpower you have, you either make bad decisions or make no decision at all. Let me tell you a story about how Facebook lost billions of dollars by not hiring the right people. Two guys named Jane and Brian were working in Yahoo for a long time. They were working on a project named Panama, which is Yahoo's most important but much delayed advertising platform. For Jane and Brian, dealing with advertisement was depressing. They felt emotionally drained and started hating their job because deep down they were not enjoying what they did. They felt they are not making anyone's life better by working on this Yahoo's advertising project, where all you have to do was making the advertisements work better. Project was not very motivating for them. Jane and Brian felt they are doing some mundane work, but all they wanted to work on was something interesting, something that could change people's life forever. So they decided to quit Yahoo. In September 2007, Jane and Brian left Yahoo, and they took 1 year break to break free from the corporate world. They traveled around South America, having the best time possible, playing frisbee, enjoying nature, thinking new thoughts. Jane and Brian done with their year-long holiday and wanted to be a part of something amazing. They wanted to work on the next world-changing idea. So both of them applied to Twitter and Facebook. Soon enough, both have failed in the interviews. Facebook and Twitter rejected Jane and Brian. Ultimately, they joined the famous Facebook Reject Club. In January 2009, Brian bought an iPhone. He fell in love with the applications of that iPhone. Not just that, Brian realized the 7-month-old App Store was about to generate a whole new industry of applications. Jane had a really interesting idea for an application. He ideated in the phone's address book, it would be really cool to have statuses next to individual names of the people. The status messages would show if you were on a call, your battery was low, or you were at the gym. That sounded like an awesome idea for an application, and they immediately jumped into developing the instant messaging application for smartphones. As soon as this application made its presence in the smartphone market, every user loved it and promoted it within their friends and family network like crazy. This application grows so fast in its customer base. In December 2013, this instant messaging service got around 400 million active users. This application is called WhatsApp. Yes, WhatsApp Inc., which was founded in 2009 by former Yahoo employees Brian Acton and Ukrainian John Combe, was acquired by the social media giant Facebook for a massive $19 billion. Can you see how a simple hiring mistake can cost your business billions of dollars? By not hiring the right people, to put it precisely, because of rejecting the right people, Facebook made a huge hiring mistake, a bad hiring decision that cost Facebook massive $19 billion. Let's dig a bit deeper into the psychology of why we make bad decisions. In a study published by the National Academy of Sciences, the research psychologists found out the reasons why some criminals don't get a fair hearing in courtroom while appealing for parole. Let me quote the research for you. 3 men doing time in Israeli prisons recently appeared before a parole board consisting of a judge, a criminologist, and a social worker. The 3 prisoners had completed at least 2/3 of their sentences, but the parole board granted freedom to only one of them. Guess which one? The first case was about an Israeli serving 3-year sentence for fraud. This case was heard about 9 a.m. in the morning. The second case was about Jewish Israeli serving 1-year sentence for assault. This case was heard at 3 p.m. in the afternoon. The third case was about an Arab Israeli serving a 3-year sentence for fraud. This case was heard at 4:30 p.m. evening. Researchers analyzed more than 1,000 decisions over the course of a year. By analyzing the judgments, researchers found there was a pattern to the parole board's decision, but it was not related to the prisoners' ethnic backgrounds, crimes, or prison term. It was all about timing of the hearing. Judges who would hear the prisoner's appeal and then get advice from other members of the board approved parole in about a third of the cases. But the probability of being paroled fluctuated wildly throughout the day. Prisoners who appeared early in the morning received parole about 70% of the time, while those who appeared late in the day were paroled less than 10% of the time. The odds favored the prisoners who appeared 9 a.m. in the morning, and he did in fact receive parole. But even though the other Arab Israeli prisoner was serving the same sentence for the same crime, the odds were against him when he appeared at 4:30 in the afternoon. He was denied parole. The same denying was happened to the Jewish guy who appeared at 3 p.m. They were just asking for parole at the wrong time of the day. There was nothing hateful or even unusual about the judge's behavior. The judge's unpredictable judgment was due to the occupational danger of being the decider all day long. The mental work of ruling case after case were owed down the decision maker, in this case the judges. This phenomenon is called decision fatigue, and it regularly damages the judgment of everyone. Whether you are a top executive or a junior professional, rich or poor, you will face decision fatigue. Let's see another study on willpower, quoted from the book The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg. By the 1980s, a theory emerged that became generally accepted among psychologists. That theory was, willpower is a learnable skill, something that can be taught the same way kids learn to do math and say thank you. But financial support for conducting these researches was very limited, and the topic of willpower was not in fashion at that time. So many of the Stanford scientists moved on to other research areas. However, a psychology PhD candidate, Mark Muravan, became very much interested in studying willpower. To this researcher, willpower as a learnable skill was not a satisfying explanation. He reasoned, a skill is something that remains constant from day to day. If you have the skill to make omelette on Wednesday, you will still know how to make it on Friday. In Mark Muravan's experience, though, it felt like he forgot how to apply willpower all the time. For example, in some evenings he would come home from work and have no problem going for a jog. But other days he could not do anything besides lying on the couch and watching television. It was as if his brain, or at least that part of his brain responsible for making him exercise, had forgotten how to summon the willpower to push him out of the door. Some days he ate healthily. Other days, when he was tired, he raided the vending machines and stuffed himself with candy and chips. If willpower is a skill, then why doesn't it remain constant from day to day? In order to find an answer to this question, Mark Muravan conducted research in his laboratory. Muravan's solution was found in the laboratory containing 1 bowl of freshly baked cookies and 1 bowl of radishes. He recruited 67 undergraduates, asked them to skip a meal. One by one, the undergraduates were asked to sit in the front of the 2 bowls. The researchers told each student, the point of this experiment is to test taste perceptions, but that's not true. The real point was to force students to exercise their willpower. Half the undergraduates were asked to eat the cookies and ignore the radishes. The other half were told to eat the radishes and ignore the cookies. Psychologist Mark Muravan's theory is, ignoring cookies is hard. It is a hard work. It takes willpower. But ignoring radishes requires no effort at all. Once the experiment started, the cookie eaters were in heaven. The radish eaters were in agony. The radish eaters were miserable because they were forcing themselves to ignore the warm, tasty cookies. Through a two-way mirror, the researchers watched the radish eaters, where one of the radish eaters picked a cookie, smelt it longingly, and then put it back in the bowl. Another radish eater grabbed a few cookies, put them down, and then licked the melted chocolate off his fingers. After 5 minutes, the researchers entered the room. By now, the radish eaters' willpower had been thoroughly tested by eating the bitter vegetable and ignoring the cookie treat. The cookie eaters hardly used any of their self-discipline. The researchers now told the participants, "We need to wait about 15 minutes for your sensory memory of the food you ate to fade." To pass the time, the researchers asked them to complete a puzzle. The puzzle looked fairly simple to the participant, but only the researcher knew this puzzle was impossible to solve. More than the cookie and radish eating part, solving the puzzle is the most important part of the experiment. The cookie eaters, with their unused reservoirs of self-discipline, started working on the puzzle. The cookie eater looked relaxed while working on the puzzle. They tried, hit a roadblock, and then started again with the puzzle. The cookie eaters kept trying to solve the puzzle again and again and again. Some of the cookie eaters spent more than half an hour before the researchers told them to stop working on the puzzle. On average, the cookie eaters spent about 19 minutes trying to solve the puzzle before they called it quit. Now, let's look at the performance of the radish eaters. With their exhausted willpower, the radish eaters were frustrated while working on the puzzle. Most of them mumbled as they worked through the puzzle. Some of them put their heads on the table and closed their eyes and stopped working on the puzzle. On average, the radish eaters worked on the puzzle for about 8 minutes only, 60% less time than the cookie eaters. When the researchers asked the radish eaters how they felt about the experiment, one of the radish eaters said he was sick of this dumb experiment. By making people use a little bit of their willpower to ignore cookies, the researchers put them into a state where they were willing to quit much faster. What's going on here? There's been more than 200 studies on willpower, and all the studies found the same thing. Willpower is not just a skill, it is a muscle. Like the muscles in your arms and legs, it gets tired as it works harder. So there is less power left over for other important things. Every time you make a decision, it's like doing another rep in the gym. And similar to how your muscles get tired at the end of a workout, the strength of your willpower fades as you make more decisions. Researchers often refer to this phenomenon as decision fatigue. When the judge on a parole board experiences decision fatigue, they deny more parole requests. This makes sense. When your willpower is fading and your brain is tired of making decisions all day long, it's very easy just to say no and keep everyone locked up than it is to debate whether or not someone is trustworthy enough to leave prison. At the beginning of the day, a judge will give each case a fair shot, but as their energy starts to fade, they start to deny parole to prisoners. Decision fatigue helps explain why ordinarily sensible people get angry at colleagues and families, buy junk food at the supermarket, and can't resist the dealer's offer to rust-proof their new car. No matter how rational and high-minded you try to be, you can't make decision after decision without paying a biological price. You're not consciously aware of being tired, but you're low on mental energy. The more choices you make throughout the day, the harder each one becomes for your brain. And finally, your brain looks for shortcuts, usually in either of two different ways. The first shortcut is to become out of control, to act impulsively instead of expending the energy to first think through the consequences. The other shortcut is the ultimate energy saver, doing nothing. Instead of worrying over decisions, you tend to avoid any choice. Avoiding making any decision often creates bigger problems in the long run, but for that moment, it eases the mental strain. You start to resist any change, any potentially risky move. In the parole hearing study we just discussed, the judges took second shortcut. They gone into energy-saving mode. They avoided making a choice. The judges were afraid they might release the prisoners who might commit a crime. So the tired judge on a parole board takes the easy way out, which is not granting the parole to the prisoner. Let me tell you another real-world study on willpower. To study decision-making and decision fatigue, the researchers went into a huge suburban mall. They interviewed shoppers about their experience in the stores and then asked them to solve some simple arithmetic problems. The researchers politely asked the shoppers to do as many arithmetic as possible, but they also said that they can quit any time. Sure enough, the shoppers who had already made the most decisions in the stores gave up very quickly on the math problems. What's the lesson here? When you shop till you drop, your willpower drops too. So why decision fatigue occurs? Why your willpower depletes over time? It is because as you make more and more decisions, your brain starts losing more glucose. Your brain doesn't stop working when glucose is low, it just stops doing some things and starts doing other things. When you're decision fatigue, your brain responds more strongly to immediate rewards and pays less attention to long-term prospects. It seems like grocery stores and retail supermarkets figured out the psychology behind impulse buys long ago. If you ever wondered why grocery stores place so many impulse buys such as candies and sweet snacks near the billing counter, your decision fatigue is the reason. Renowned psychologist Dr. Baumeister says, "Today we feel overwhelmed because there are so many choices. Your body may have dutifully reported to work on time, but your mind can escape at any instant. A typical computer user looks at more than 3 dozen websites a day and gets fatigued by the continual decision making. Whether to keep working on a project, check out that celebrity gossip, follow a link to YouTube, or buy something on Amazon, you can do enough damage in a 10-minute online shopping spree to wreck your budget for the rest of the year." Making decisions uses the same willpower that you use to say no to donuts or drugs. It's the same willpower that you use to be polite or to wait your turn or to drag yourself out of bed or to hold off going to the bathroom. Your ability to make the right investment or hiring decision may be compromised simply because you expended some of your willpower earlier when you held your tongue in response to someone's offensive remark or when you pushed yourself to get to the meeting on time. I hope the science behind making bad decisions is fascinating to you. Now let's get back to discussing how to make hiring decision when your willpower is strong. A great hire could bring unexpected possibilities to your company. But of course, making the wrong decision can bring hundreds of dollars in unforeseen expenses. Sometimes you realize quickly and resolve the situation, but often it's a problem that grows over time, resulting in a great loss of resources, relationships, morale, and revenue. When you're in growth mode, you often have a lot of job vacancies to fill, and sometimes you settle on average candidates. This is the one thing you should avoid doing at all costs because it can cause you greater suffering than waiting few more weeks to find the very best candidate. Here, I'm going to give you a best practice you can leverage that helps you avoid making bad hires. I hope this tip will help you avoid making bad hiring decisions in future. If you have important hiring decisions to make those crucial decisions early in the day. If you have high volume of business decisions to make, allocate most of your important tasks at the beginning of your day. This way, you'll be dealing with them with the maximum amount of energy. For example, I try to do most of my research, writing, podcasting works in the morning. I also try to do most of my important works and business decisions early in the morning as well. If I have an important life decision to make, I try to do it earlier in the day. Willpower is not something you have or something you lack. It rises and falls. Though it's impossible to maximize your willpower for every moment of every day, it is possible to make a few changes to your day and your routine so that you can get the most of your decisions and make steady progress on the things that are more important to you. It was a pleasure talking to you today. If you like this show, please give it a rating and write a honest review in iTunes. And don't forget to share it with your friends. Also, subscribe on YouTube. I have started a Facebook group called Hiring Mastery Show. Join the group to stay connected. Until next Hiring Mastery Show, hire right, build great teams, and stay awesome. To know more about this podcast, visit hiringmasteryshow.com. I'm Lavanya J.